Welcome to Fat Cat production of News with a View, hosted by me, John A. Costa, where we look at the news and I take it from all sources, the conservative side to the liberal side, and I compare the two. And only in one instance, and it was from Reuters, did I find that there were discrepancies, but minor enough that we could walk our ways through it and explain what mistakes they made. Now, today's episode, this is February 24th, 2025, episode 38, and we'll jump right into it. In today's episode, we are going to talk about the deputy director of the FBI, Elon Musk's weekend demand, ATF appointment, James Carvel predicts a Democrat and GOP governor. They want to be part of the immigration process for states, that the governors of states should have a say in it. More about the NBC firing, and that's what it is, NBC firing, and a little move around at NBC proper, but nothing drastic over there. And a government contract clause for federal workers, which ties into number two, Musk and Doge. Just giving a little understanding of what is involved with their contract. So, getting to Deputy Director of the FBI, Dan Bongino. Now, Dan Bongino was a Secret Service agent and then turned a conservative media commentator. Has his own show on Rumble. And he has been appointed by Kash Patel to be second in command at the FBI. And he started his career with the New York City Police Department in 1995. And I think 1999, he joined the Secret Service, special agent. And then in 2002 became an instructor in Beltsville, Maryland, which is normally, I think, near Guantanamo. Not Guantanamo, I'm sorry, Quantico. But in Batesville, Maryland. In 2020, he had a cancer scare. He got over that. Looked like he had lymphoma and was treated. So he's going to be in charge, second in charge. I think it's a great choice. Somewhat controversial, but a great choice. Trump has some people, not all his people are vetted and trusted, and that's what he's looking for. So I think the FBI will be able to fulfill its plan of Kash Patel's to bring the agency back into a more friendly light. Now, of course, the FBI is not a friendly organization when they're looking at you. They have unlimited resources, and again, as I've always stated with the FBI, it has always been weaponized, and they are the keeper of the secrets. So, lots of news is going to be coming out of there, and the Attorney General, and a whole bunch of things. So, But welcome, Dan Bongino. And he was always fun to listen to. Very knowledgeable man, knows his stuff, and I think he will be great at the job. I know the Democrats are screaming and yelling, and well, too bad. And you know, the the Democrats are going to be screaming for the next 4 years, and hopefully for the next 12 years. But I think we haven't even seen the tip of the iceberg yet on the things that are going to be exposed, not only by Doge, but by Kash Patel and Pam Bundy. And the real bombshell, for lack of a better word, that we all are going to feel and what affects us all is going to be from Robert Kennedy Jr. when he starts exposing the lies in our food and our lies in big pharma and vaccinations. And again, I'm not an anti-vaxxer. I refuse to get the COVID shot. Just outright refused. There was something very sinister about it, and I just didn't believe what they were telling me. And yeah, I got COVID, and I'm here. I got COVID 3 times. I'm here. So obviously I come from good stock because I made it. But I would not say unscathed because right after I was done with COVID, my doctor had discovered about 5 months later that I had developed a AFib, and that AFib cannot be controlled. It's not affecting anything yet, meaning my blood flow is good, my pulse is good. I have no blockages. I went for all the tests. Fat guy went for all the tests. Everything came back good. Every doctor, lose 40 pounds, lose 40 pounds. I'm like, all right, sure. But they gave me medication, and it did nothing. So I went to the doctor, and I said, after a year of them playing with the dosages and stuff and putting me on a blood thinner, which, I'd scratch myself and I bled like a hemophiliac. I said no more. I'll come in for my visits every 6 months. You do blood work, you do everything else, but I'm not taking this medication any longer. If it's not helping me, it can only be hurting me. So I'm not taking it. And I'm hoping that the truth comes out with Robert Kennedy there, and I know it will. And it'll be an eye-opener, and that affects every American. I don't care, blue, red, green, yellow, black. That truly affects all Americans. All right, so we got off the subject a little bit over there. The other thing was Elon Musk's X posting telling workers that they had till Monday, which is tonight at 11:59, to send an email reply to his demand for an explanation of what they've accomplished in the last week. Personally speaking, from now I'm going to put my union hat on, is that I didn't think he had the authority to do that. But since he is heading up an agency, if you read, and I'll get into that, that's my other thing about the government contract clause for federal workers. It just seems real murky to me because that is assessing, having a self assessment. And the union contract language is pretty clear on how that assessment is supposed to take place and how it's supposed to take place. And I will agree with the unions that they should take that. They should grieve it, number one, give a grievance. It's not a court case, and they'll lose every court. Well, they won't lose every court case, but the courts say you haven't tried all your remedies. You haven't shown the court that you've tried all the remedies that are inside your contract to address such a crisis as you're having. So, personally, I would advise my members not to do a self-evaluation because it can only be used against you. You know, you know. And secondly, a lot of these employees are on paid leave. They haven't done anything. What did you accomplish this week? I cleaned my floor, dusted, did laundry, bought groceries, paid some bills. Now, you could put that in a highlight and send that off, 5 bullet things, and send it off, and you have complied with this request. But I don't think that was the proper way to make the request. The OPM did send out the email, and it was a blanket email, went out to everyone. And certain agencies can't answer it. The FBI, the CIA, the NSA, the IRS, and I'm sure a scope of others where, today I indicted Mr. Rich, and Mr. Paul is under our investigation, so I had those papers signed today and yesterday. Yeah, you can't do that. So I think this was more of an I would look at it from the union. I go, you're intimidating the membership. You're intimidating. And you're making it now a hostile workplace. And that's how I would go after them. And then you're making it a hostile workplace, and then you fire them because they complain about that. Yeah, that can only end up badly for an employer. And that's what the government is an employer. They should stick to the process inside the collective bargaining agreement unless the government nullifies it, which they can. They have the power to nullify contracts, and they can just nullify it and go, that contract no longer exists. We don't recognize it, and as such, we'll just go to our standards and practices for hiring, firing, boom, 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 and we'll do that. And they can do that. Government can cancel a contract for convenience, and this would be a convenience. What was funny or interesting is that you had a congressman from Illinois, Representative Sean Casten, who has been vocal, post on X that the reply should be a GFY reply, which is we're all adults, so go fuck yourself. I would not do that. I would not put that in writing. I would not use a government email or a laptop or a phone to make such a reply. You had Senator Tina Smith. Tina Smith. She's out of Minnesota. Musk is not the head of anything, but he is a dick. I mean, the whenever the Democrats can't land on something solid, they resort to cursing and putting you down, calling you stupid. And I mean, that's a playbook they should stop going to. Honestly, you should stop going to that playbook. And doing that. You have language that you can go to, and I think you're on pretty solid ground with that. That Musk was able to observe and report, but he couldn't act, and I think he needs to be reined in a little bit. I think that a lot of people would feel better if they knew what the guardrails were. You can go this far to the right and that far to the left, but he must stay in between the guardrails. Right now, there aren't any guardrails, and that's a problem. Mostly when you have a contract, because the contract is the guardrail. So, I think that the president has the right to fire people in the executive branch. I just don't think the way they're going about it is the right way. There is such a thing as self-evaluations, and they're always a trap, because you put it down on paper and they go, well, even you knew you were deficient over here. And we might have talked about some of these things in the past, and you know what? You're just not getting it. So I don't like doing this, but I got to let you go. Now, probationary employee, let them go. You don't have to give them an explanation. You should, but, you could just say we're downsizing and you're probationary and you're the easiest one to let go. Last hired, first fired. I don't think that, like I said, I don't think the government is in the right side over here in how they're doing this. The union has told people to, don't answer it until you hear back from us. We're trying to gather more information. A part of the problem is you get something on a weekend. I don't have to look at my emails. I mean, I don't have to look at my emails. I used to tell them at CBS too. I do not have to check my email or check my phone for messages on my own time. I can turn that phone off. I can turn my computer off. I don't have to look at my emails. Now, Musk being very calculative. And this is where I said this becomes a matter of making it a hostile workplace. He posted that on X. So people that say, I don't get my emails, I don't look at my work emails, or I don't look at my computer, I don't, I don't do this. If they open up their X and he knows who your name is and stuff and can use that, they go, well, you went on X. Why didn't you go look at your email? And they will intimidate you. And that is something where you should not be intimidated on the job. And that's where I think the union really needs to stand and go, you can't email these people in a private email. And if you sent it over from the Office of Personnel Management, OPM, I'm not required to look at that 24 hours a day. All right? I might look at it Monday morning when I get to work, but I don't have to look at it at 6 in the afternoon on a Saturday. So my job is 40 hours a week. This is my assignment, and this is when I'm done. And we've had that argument in the past with companies that I've dealt with. And most of the time, it has to do with this. They go, it's company issued. We can call it, we can use it anytime we want. And that's when, they got cute and we got cuter and go, here's your equipment back. Because my contract says I don't have to accept your equipment. You can contact me telephonically. That was a word they used. Telephonically. And inform me. But I have caller ID. And if I see it's a work number calling me, I just won't answer it. How about that? And they go, well, it's your responsibility. No, it's not. I don't take this into the shower with me. I don't take it into the bathroom with me. I don't use it while driving. And I don't take it out to dinner with me. Why would you think I would keep it on when I'm sleeping? And they go, well, if we have to call you in the middle of the night to come in, there's a problem and stuff. And I go, yeah, that's all right. You can call. Not answering it. And, if you call me at 6:05 in the morning on a work day, and I'm supposed to be at work at 9 in the morning, and I see a 6:05 call, I'll pick it up. But if you send me an email or anything, I'm not looking at it. And, we advised our membership not to open their emails and do not give, change your personal email accounts and, just tell your boss in passing, hey, I changed my email account. That's it. Boom. And, we all had work email accounts that we would look at. So, I don't access it. If you access it, then you are committed to read anything that comes through there. So I think what he did is try to circumvent OPM, who had a legitimate right to contact these people, and then on X to put a time frame on it where there was no time frame. And you could go to the union and say, hey, we're requesting from your membership that they do this, this, and this. And if they're on leave, just have them write leave, 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 leave in 5 bullet things, just, 5 times. And we'll be fine with that. We have a program to look for that. And if they are on leave, we'll know it. And, but they answered and they did what they were supposed to do. And, we'll see what happens next. But if you don't answer it on Monday, when you should be looking at your emails, and then, they could call that insubordination and come after you that way. It would be difficult. I mean, the company could always hire you. And when I say company, I'm saying the government can always fire you. And you could say, hey, my union told me not to do this. And they might turn around and they go, well, your problem isn't with us, your problem is with your union. But you're fired. And you're terminated. And, your union can now try to fight to get your job back. And that's what this all comes down to. And they don't want 50 or 60% of the people who are intimidated by it just going, boom, boom, I send them off something. Because once you send it off to them, well, like they said, well, it doesn't seem like you did a lot here. Because what can we do? We're not allowed to answer the phone. We're not allowed to do anything. So I didn't do anything. And they go, well, you're getting paid, right? You're here. So it's very intimidating. And I think that's a hostile action by the company. The company being the government. So I think if this were to go to arbitration would go yeah, the workers, the contract is the contract, and you can't deviate from it. And if you do deviate, you're at fault, and and so forth. So Bernie Sanders jumped into and had a warning for all American workers that if Elon Musk can do this to a few 100,000 workers, can you imagine what companies will be able to do to you? And the companies can always fire you just about for any reason. So, and that's just the way it is. Right to work states and stuff, and no a non-cause state, so they can just fire you. We let you go. I don't have to give you a reason why. You're gone. And the cry of today it's us, tomorrow it's you. I don't know. I don't buy that. Well, but I do say that what Musk did in X would definitely be construed as making it a hostile work environment. And he'd say that's freedom of speech, not when you are directing people and contrary to the standard practices of your contract. You're going to have a problem. All right, let's move on. Kash Patel will run the ATF, Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, one of the first federal agencies with policing power. And that was because the farmers were making moonshine. And all the liquor used to have to be regulated, just like it is today. And the moonshiners were getting away from that. And that goes way back into the 1700s. You were allowed to make liquor for yourself. That was allowed. Just like today, you can make liquor for yourself. You can't sell it. And their farmers were selling it. So. And then the same thing with tobacco. Tobacco needed to be regulated. It was a cash crop. And the feds wanted to make sure they got their cut. And firearms. They wanted to know what was being made, how it was being made, who was making it. And remember even way back when in the oldie days, a felon was not allowed to have a gun. And you could have a gun like in the Old West if you were a felon. Just wasn't applied, but much later on it was. And remember, those were territories, and they were held differently, and some weren't even territories. So, but ATF, and so he'll not only run the FBI, but he'll also run ATF. A lot of power. And this is according to White House officials and 2 other sources familiar with the plan. I hate when they do that. I don't like it. And I'm pretty sure I took this from Fox News. I don't like when they do that. Just come out and say, this is, say who told you. And, they go on to tell you what the ATF is about. We all know what the ATF is about. So, Kash Patel, another notch in his very experienced belt. All right, that was the third thing. The fourth item, the great and powerful James Carvel predicts. Well, James Carvel predicted and predicts about when the Trump White House will collapse. And he says it's going to be in less than 30 days. In less than 30 days, the White House Trump's White House will collapse. And he says, we're in the midst of it right now. This is the lowest approval, not even close to any president has ever had at a comparable time. He's kidding me, right? I don't know what the hell he's looking at. But the approval rating of Trump is through the ceiling. Now, if you went to a college campus and asked, or you went to, Connecticut and just asked the people of Connecticut, yeah, they'd say, "Oh, Trump, terrible. Oh my God, horrible." You go to Texas, you go to Florida, you go to South Carolina, and you ask those questions, and you have an 80% approval rating, which wouldn't be correct either. It's just not the way you do polls. And of course, we've seen how James Carvel does his polling. The same man who said Biden will definitely do a second term and complete it. Okay? The same man then said Harris will win in a landslide and Trump will be humiliated. And this guy they're still printing his predictions. You got to be kidding me. This guy, just stop. Stop, James. You had your fun in the Clinton days. Your time is over. No one wants to hear from you anymore. You haven't been right. You're terrible. And you really look bad. You look like the crypt keeper. Jim, if I was standing outside in the rain and you came to me and said, "Hey, it's raining out," I still wouldn't believe you. So we're leaving it at that. James Carvel predicts. All right, we're going to quickly go over to Democrat and GOP governors urge Trump to let states play a role in immigration decisions. No. Because, and I'll tell you why that would be a horrible idea. We'll just take Colorado. And they go, we'll take in all the immigrants, we can get them jobs, we can do everything. And then they come into Colorado, and then they scatter out. Yeah, what are you going to do? Put bracelets on them? No. You need an immigration program that is federal, that surrounds all our borders, and then takes these people in. And when they're documented, then you can go to any state that you want to live in and find a job or go to a job that you've secured. And good luck to you. And, remember you have to check in whatever the check-in dates are for these people, 10 years, whatever, I don't know. And, or become a citizen. But welcome. You came through documented. You can go anywhere. Just because Colorado would let you in to work, what about the other states? They're not reciprocal. What is reciprocal is the federal government running it and then going, you can go to all 50 states. Where if you just go to Colorado, how do I know you stay in Colorado? No. Each state doesn't have their own immigration laws. Go screw yourself. That's not going to work. One law, everyone follows. Can you get that through your head? And even the Republican that's on here, Kevin Stitt, Oklahoma governor. You ain't a bright guy. You don't get to make those decisions, and you want to be at the table. Well, guess what? You are at the table, you moron. You have senators. You have congresspeople that represent your state. We don't need the governor there. You're elected to run your state, nothing else. So this idea of bringing them to the table, no. The only way you're getting to that table is if you're serving food. So, absolutely not. Ridiculous. Ridiculous, ridiculous, ridiculous. Letting states have on the table of immigration. Guys get stupider and stupider every day. Back to item number 6. The NBC firing of Joy Reid and Alex Wagner, and many black celebrities and influencers are saying that this was a race issue and that people should boycott MSNBC. Now, Rebecca Cutler, the new interim president of NBC, is reorganizing the network. And she's looking at money. And she's looking at eyeballs. And she said that show has to go. Read Out is now tossed out. And that's the way it is. That's the way it works. Now, she had that show for over 5 years. And, you know, and like I said, she should have been fired years ago. Or at least no later than Thanksgiving, when she made her racist comments about Thanksgiving. Now, they could have made that decision and just waited for numbers to show up and go, you don't have the numbers, got to let you go. So either way, she's gone. Good riddance. Don't let the door hit you on the ass on the way out. Alex Wagner, she was part of the show, and she's going to be a contributor to something else. But they're just, like I said yesterday, they're just moving that desk closer to the exit, and she's out. Now, the interesting part is Jen Psaki, remember, Biden's first press secretary, launched a show in 2023, and with the help of Cutler, will occupy one of the primetime hours during the week, Inside with Jen Psaki. And it's currently MSNBC's most watched show. So you know that she's going to go into that 9 p.m. time slot. People are saying, of course, but fire the black person and put the white girl in place. Well, that's not, it's numbers and money, folks. And, it said it's possible that she could take that 9 p.m. time slot after Rachel Maddow returns to 1 day a week after wrapping up 100 days of the Trump presidents. So right now they're giving Rachel Maddow extra hours, but after the 100th day, she slips back into 1 day per week. I think she's getting $25 million a year for her show of 1 day a week. Pretty sweet. And her numbers are horrible. Horrible. She'll be the next to go. And like I said this in another podcast and some other thing that I had wrote on the internet. And I said that in November, that by April, the landscape of the news will have changed. And it will change dramatically for the left, and will even change on the right side. Not as bad, but it will change, and that will happen. In another NBC move, Lester Holt is leaving his anchoring position on the evening news after 10 years, and he's going to go back to Dateline, where he used to just fill in and stuff, now as a full-time contributor to Dateline. So Lester Holt is making the move. There was no talk on who's replacing Lester Holt on the evening news. So all the evening newses have seen some changes. CBS when change, and they're going with Dubois and the other guy. They're all the newses are changing. That's just the way it goes, and every once in a while they got to clean house. And you get new producers and directors in, and they, we're going to redo the set, and then redo the people, and then that's going to get people to watch us. We used to laugh when we were in engineering and go, you got to get the programming first there, pal. But you want this built this way? You got it. All right, now, item 7, government contracts. How they work with the federal government. I'm going to read this to you, and it is rather lengthy. And then I'll explain to you really what this means. And all government contracts have this in it. And it's the employer's rights section. Consistent with 5 USC 7106 and subject to Section C of this section, nothing in this article or Federal Labor Management Relations Statute shall affect the authority of the employer. A, to determine the mission, budget, organization, number of employees, and internal security practice. And this is I'm using the CFPB, Consumer Federal Protection Bureau, and B. So, in accordance with applicable laws, to hire, assign, direct, lay off, and retain employees in the agency, or to suspend, remove, reduce, ingrade, or pay, or take other disciplinary actions against such employees. 2, to assign work, to make determinations with respect to contracting out, to determining the personnel by which agency operations shall be conducted. 3, with respect to filling positions, to make selections for appointments from A, among properly ranked and certified candidates for promotion, or B, any appropriate source. And 4, to take whatever actions may be necessary to carry out the CFPB's mission during emergencies. And C, nothing in this article or statute shall preclude the employer and the union from negotiating. 19 CFB-NTEU, which is their union, collective bargaining agreement. 1, at an election of the agency on the members, types, and grades of employees or positions assigned, organization, subdivision, work, projects, tour of duty, or on the technology, method, and means of performing work. Procedures which management officials of the agency will observe in exercising any authority under the article or statute. Or 3, appropriate arrangement for employees adversely affected by the exercise of any authority under this article or statute by such management officials. D, the employer retains all other rights in accordance with applicable laws, regulations, except those specific modifications contained in the agreement. All right. So, what that statement, and a lot of companies have almost a similar type of language. If the contract stays in force, so does that code, which is the USC 7106. And everything, mostly Section C of this section. And Section C of that section is the hiring practice and how they determine who gets hired, who gets promoted, and really it just says that at the end of the day, the employer gets to make that decision. That it's not up to a supervisor. It is up to management to make that decision. They could take that. They could take the recommendations of a a supervisor, and 99% of the time that's what they do. But if the supervisor said, "Hey, I want Mary to have this job," and they look at Mary and they look at Jane, and they say, "Well, Jane has more experience in it. She gets a promotion." Well, that's it. As long as Jane wasn't sleeping with the boss, or there was any shenanigans, that's what they say they can do. It's a very tight clause. And of course, the last part of that clause is with the exceptions of those specific modifications contained in the agreement. Now, if the agreement has a disciplinary action, then you got to adhere to that. And if there's a different criteria for another department or other agency, that doesn't affect this agency. They negotiated, carved out of the applicable contract, the government's contract, what they're allowed to make exceptions for. And this ties back to item 2, Musk's weekend demand. That in their contract, it very specifically says how evaluations and how grievances and how your working conditions and your working performance, how that is supposed to be looked at and analyzed. And for people that are not on probation, there is a procedure inside the contract that allows for, as long as your deficiency isn't so great or so bad that you can't perform and others can't perform their duties because you can't perform your duties. Would a termination be the first action that they could take? Most of the time, it's like just telling the person, "Hey, you're not doing your fair share. You gotta bring it up. You gotta bring your game here. And if you feel you need more training, if you need some help, you need this, yeah, we'll get you that. But understand, we're going to put you back on we'll see how we'll reevaluate this in 90 days. And then in 90 days, if you're doing great, this little 90-day letter goes like it never existed." And usually that works pretty good. At the end, if they don't and stuff, they'll give a last and final warning letter where suspension or termination, up to termination, could happen. And then they go from there. So what this says is, even though the government says some of this stuff, the union contract can supersede those clauses. But if the president signs an executive order, that's new law. And it says right in there that all laws must be followed. And if his law supersedes 7106, you still got to follow it. You don't follow 7106. That could be gone. He jumped over it, and now you have a contractual issue. And the government's going to say, it's no contractual issue. It's right here. It says in this other section, all applicable laws. That's the new applicable law. And they go, yeah, but we carved it out. Yeah, you carved it out for this law and this regulation. But this is a new regulation. And doesn't have that in there. This is it. And that is where the robes, or a federal judge, not necessarily the robes, but a federal judge will step in and go, well, the government, that's within their right. Now, what has happened where the courts have thrown the challenge out by the union was because they did not follow all the applicable. They went right to the courts, and instead of going to A and then B and then C, and then when you're done with C, then you could go all the way down to Z. But they didn't do that, so they said, no, you got to go back and do that. And we can't put an injunction. We can't say, we can't stop the government from doing it because you're not following the contract. And the government is following the law and doing what they're allowed to do. And you're taking it here, and you shouldn't be taking it here. And I said it wasn't a very smart union move. I'm not impressed with their union. I understand that at the end of the day, you got to play by the rules, and the rules changed. But you've agreed that to whatever those rule changes are, that you abide by them. And I guarantee you, no government contract would have been signed without that clause in it, because it's a way out clause. And we had one, and we're forced to jamur, which is an act of God. So, and we had that situation during Superstorm Sandy. One of CBS's studios were wiped out on the pier, and they were doing non-union work there for CBS Sports, and we didn't have jurisdiction to that, and so it was at the pier, and we were in a building that we had jurisdiction of that work in the building, and in anything that had CBS Inc. on it. But CBS Sports was CBS Sports, not CBS Inc., so always some wiggle room for the company there. But when the pier was destroyed and the studio was wiped out and sports still had to go on, the company was scrambling, because remember, Manhattan also got swamped, and you just can't get this equipment in overnight to build a studio. And sports had to happen, and the company had come to us, and we went to the company and we said, hey, we're going to put a blanket around you and give you a nice hot cup of coffee. And the only way you can do this is by allowing those non-union people into our building. And we know you don't want to make them union, but we're willing to give them a different status in the union. And we'll, in our language, we had language in there that gave us the authority to tell the company that we can allow this class of people in here, but you have to give them this scale. Now, it was funny because most of those people were being paid well above scale. And, they said, we're not going to work for you guys, at that rate. Now, most of those people only worked weekends or 3 days a week. They were per diem, and they worked other places, and they would, there was plenty of jobs for them to go to and get work. So they weren't overly upset about losing their CBS gig if it comes down to taking, a 1/3 pay cut. So we told the company again that our contract is just the minimum. Those are minimums. And if you want to pay these people $1,000 a day, that's your business. But they have to be union members. And we'll give them this special union membership, and then they can come in, but they can only do the work they were doing. They couldn't do our work. And so we had a classification. And we said, we'll do this temporarily until you could find a new home. So, they jumped on it. And, they were thankful that we were understanding and that we worked with them. And when we had to go back to negotiations in about a year, the people at the top, like Leslie Moonves and stuff, they remembered how much we helped them. And except for a few things, the contract was, we pounded out a contract in 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks. And everyone was happy, and we were all hugging one another. And we went to CBS and said, listen, this is really working out well for you guys. It's working well for us. Why not just keep them in the union? We reclassify them as staff or per diem, however way you want to do it. And then we'll come up for, where you could scale them. And you don't have to go out and buy all new equipment. You don't have to have a new studio built. We got studios right here. And if you bring them over here, then we can have them work in the building, but they still can't do our work. They can just do sports work, nothing else. And the company looked and they said, hey, we'd love to do that if you guys can do that. And we said, well, we're the union. We can make that happen. We have to sit down and talk a little bit. There were some other things that needed to be discussed, like CBS.com that was starting up. And when you have a good relationship with the union and the union has a good relationship with the company, it's amazing what can happen. And, everyone benefited. And when you don't have a good relationship, now, I'm not saying that Biden had a good relationship with these government unions, but he had a good relationship with these government unions because he gave them whatever they wanted. And, it was a guaranteed of, at least 6 million votes because their household votes and their mother's vote and their father's vote and grandma and grandpa vote and go, they're hiring us, they're doing this, we're going to vote. So most people look at that and they go, well, those are easy votes. That's low-hanging fruit and doesn't cost me anything. It's a budget item. Yeah, pay it. But Trump looks at it as a business now, and he goes, they're non-performing, they don't do anything. Why am I paying them? And he doesn't have a good relationship with unions. He worked with unions in New York. He absolutely worked with them. But if he didn't have to, oh no, he wouldn't. And if he could push a button that made all the union people disappear, his finger would hurt from pressing it so hard. But since he didn't have that button, he had to work with them. And where he got mad with is the middlemen in between those things that, siphoned money away. And, if the union people are only going to get 82 cents of every dollar, well, how about if I just offered those union men $1 and they don't have to deal with losing 18 cents or, 12 cents of every dollar. So, he just thought of, getting rid of the middleman. That's how Trump thinks. Elon Musk, they're all business people. At the end of the day, except for Elon Musk, I will say this, and some of these other people that take chances. They take chances because they realize that the benefit outweighs the risk. And most of these guys are so wealthy that they don't have to get backing. They just have to get it succeeding a little bit, and then they open the market up and they take money in. They sell shares and stuff. So very, very clever people, very smart people. But I think the union has a real chance of fighting this. And then once they get hostile work environment, and now again, the problem is the EEOC is still there and it's still functioning. They just don't have a head of their department, but everyone else there is they're doing their thing. So they're still functioning. And if they get in there and say, hey, and they fast track it, and they will fast track it, and say, hey, Elon Musk is causing a workplace harassment problem in the workplace, harassment, uncomfortable. They might be able to stop some of this stuff. Or at least then the courts will say, well, where are the guardrails? Show me how far you can go over here, how far you want to go over there. And no, you can't do that. Then, they got a contract. Unless you null and void the contract. And if you null and void one federal government contract for employees, yeah, guess what's going to happen? You're going to have to do them to them all. And, that will be interesting to see happen. The other thing that's coming back to life is the Humphrey law, if you want to call it the law, where there was way back in the olden days, one of the presidents went after this federally protected worker and fired him. And they said, no, you couldn't fire me because I was, through the Senate and I got approved and did this. And he took it to the Supreme Court. And while the Supreme Court was hearing it, he died. But the wife picked up the suit. And they ended up settling for without the Supreme Court going out to the settling for whatever his pay would have been and stuff, and they just settled, and that became, I think, the Humphreys executor ruling or case, and that's why the notice of firings and things like that became very important, but the case was really never settled. And it's like part of case law, but I don't know how this Supreme Court would handle that. To say the president, can't fire someone on the spot. It could be done for malfeasance and theft, or absolute dereliction of your duties of your job. It could be done and has been done. But in this case, they could scream it's political because I'm a DEI fan, or I'm a Democrat, or I don't support Trump, and that's why you're getting rid of me. Well, you can't do that. That's a problem. Now, DEI you could, because it's not a law. It's just not a law. But if they could say that's because I'm a Democrat or I'm a progressive or something like that, and the government just turns around and go, yeah, we had no idea we didn't care what they are. I'm sure a lot of Republicans are being fired So that won't hold water, but it will slow the, as they press it through the courts. And what Trump is hoping for is they just say, hey, the president has the power. Next case, please. And that's it. And that has already, I think, happened. And I think that, he has the power over the executive branch. End of story. So, all right, I'm going to finish this up. It's been longer than an hour. I love hearing myself talk. Chris and Rowan, hello. Bob, haven't heard from you in a couple of days, but I'll give you a call. And everyone else, be safe, be well, say a prayer. Even you, Bob, say a prayer. A lot of victims out there, a lot of people that need a prayer. Give to charities if you can. Charity does begin at home. Make sure the charity is a registered charity. Don't be a victim helping a victim. And I probably will have definitely one tomorrow. It will go out very, very early because tomorrow is card night. And I got to be out here at 5:30. So that means I got to be done with this show by 1 to edit, boom, and upload it, which takes like an hour and 20 minutes. So tomorrow is going to be first thing in the morning. And then that's it. So with that, I'm going to say good night as I fade to black.